Here's a question I've been getting a lot lately from homeowners all across Austin. My house has been sitting on the market for months. Should I just rent it out? And honestly, a ton of people are already doing exactly that. Not because they plan to become landlords, but because they felt like they had no other choice. Zillow just dropped a report that puts Austin as the third worst city in the entire country for what we're calling accidental landlords. Homeowners who tried to sell, couldn't get the price that they wanted, and flipped the listing to a rental instead. So if you're trying to sell right now or thinking about buying, this trend has real consequences for you. And if you're already sitting on a home that you can't move, stick around because we need to talk. I'm Nick Garcia, your Austin real estate expert. And today I'm breaking down exactly what's happening in this market, why it's happening, and what you should do about it. Let's get into it. So first, what exactly is an accidental landlord? It's pretty simple, really. An accidental landlord is someone who listed their home for sale, didn't get the offers that they were hoping for, were maybe unrealistic about the price, and rather than dropping their price, they pulled the listing and put it up for rent instead. They didn't set out to be in the landlord business, but they just didn't want to sell at a loss or at what they felt was below what their home was worth. And according to Zillow's March 2026 analysis, about 4% of Austin's for sale listing recently converted to rentals. That makes Austin number 3 in the country for this trend. Who's ahead of us? Denver at 4.9% and Houston at 4.2%. And right behind us, San Antonio at 3.9%. So we've got our 4 Texas cities in the top 5. That's not a coincidence, and we'll talk about that in a second. Nationally, this trend is at near record highs, and about 2.3% of all Zillow rental listings were recently marked for sale. The only time it was higher was in November 2022 when rates doubled almost overnight and sellers were panicking. But here's what's different now. Back in 2022, people were scared. Today, sellers and people are just stubborn. And there's a big difference between these two things, and it makes a big difference in what the market is doing. Okay, so why Austin? Why is it hitting our market, our city so hard? The answer to that is you have to go back to 2020, 21, and 2022. If you lived through Austin's real estate market during that period, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Homes are going for 20, 30, sometimes 50% above asking price. People were waiving inspections, writing love letters, bidding wars on modest starter homes in Pflugerville and Kyle. It was absolute madness. A lot of people bought at the peak of that frenzy. And a lot of people also sold during that period and locked in incredible gains. But here's the problem. Many of those peak buyers are now wanting to sell, and the market has changed dramatically, to say the least. Prices have softened. Inventory is at record highs. Days on market have stretched out. Buyers have a ton of options now, and they know it. Zillow senior economist put it perfectly. She said sellers today are facing a very different reality than they did just a few years ago. Bargaining power is shifting towards buyers. Homes are taking longer to sell, and renting out the property has become a way for sellers to buy time rather than compete aggressively on price. And she added something that I think is really important. She said, today's sellers are rarely forced to sell. They're often just unwilling to budge from what they feel their home is worth. And that's the key word, unwilling. These aren't people who can't afford to hold. These are people who believe their home is worth X amount. The market is offering them Y, and they'd rather rent it than accept that difference. And I get it. I really do. If you bought at the top of the market, selling at a lower price feels like a gut punch. It's emotional. It's personal. Your home isn't just some financial asset. It's where you've lived your life, raised your kids. But here's where I have to put on my real estate advisor hat and be completely real with you. Because becoming a landlord, even accidentally, comes with a whole set of issues, responsibilities, and risks that most people don't fully think through when they're put in that moment in frustration. Let me walk you through a few of these. Number 1, carrying costs add up fast. If you've already moved into your next home, you're now paying 2 mortgages, or at least 1 mortgage plus property taxes, insurance, HOA fees, maintenance on that rental property. Even if you have a tenant, there's no guarantee the rent covers all of that, especially with where interest rates have been lately. Number 2, being a landlord is like having a second job. I don't care how amazing the tenants are. Things break, leases have to be drafted, rent has to be collected, disputes happen, Are you ready for a midnight call about a busted water heater? I don't know. Number 3, you're gambling on appreciation that may not come or may take a while. The whole bet here is I'll rent it out for a year or two, the market will recover, and then I'll sell at my price. But what if it doesn't recover that fast? Austin's market has been rebalancing for the last couple of years now. And to top it off, timing the market is incredibly difficult and impossible. Number 4, tenants can complicate your exit. Once you have that tenant in place, selling becomes harder. In Texas, you generally have to honor the lease. So if you sign a 12-month lease and decide you want to sell in 6 months, unfortunately, you may be stuck waiting. Number 5, tax implications. When a property becomes a rental, the tax situation changes. You lose some benefits of that being your primary residence. And if it appreciates while it's a rental, you may owe some capital gains taxes when you eventually do so. None of this means becoming an accidental landlord is always the wrong move. Sometimes for a lot of people, it makes perfect sense, but you need to go into it with eyes completely wide open and not just as an emotional reaction to a frustrating market. All right, now let's flip this around a little bit because sellers aren't the only ones playing hardball. Redfin put out a report recently ranking cities where buyers are backing out of deals before closing, what they're calling getting ghosted on home purchases. Austin didn't make the top 10 worst cities, but the numbers here are still a little bit concerning. Almost 14% of Austin home purchases were called off in September of last year alone. That's a lot of deals falling apart. So what's driving that? The same thing driving the accidental landlord trend, honestly, is what is a big player here. We're in what we call the Goldilocks standoff. Sellers want full price or close to it because they bought during a boom and they feel like anything less is a loss, and a lot of times it is. Buyers, meanwhile, they know they have the leverage now. So they're not waiving inspections anymore. They want concessions, they want repairs, they want closing cost help, buy downs. And if a seller won't budge, they walk. Neither side wants to be the one to blink first. And what that creates is a market that looks active on paper, lots of listing, lots of buyers, but is quietly frozen underneath. Deals falling apart, listings converting to rentals, everyone waiting for the other shoe to drop. This is a market that we are in right now, folks. So let's get into the part you actually came to this video for. What should you do if you're navigating this market? So if you're trying to sell, honest price expectations are everything. I know that's maybe not what you want to hear, but if your home has been sitting for 60, 90, 120 days, the market is telling you something. The accidental landlord route might feel safer, but it's often just delaying the inevitable and a lot of times adding complexity in the process. So work with the local agent, a good one, someone who knows the Austin market by street, by memory, not just somebody pulling national comps, and have a real conversation about what your home is actually worth today, not what it was worth in 2021. If you genuinely can manage a rental property and the numbers work and you're willing to be that landlord, then renting it out might make sense as a short-term hold strategy. But the important thing is run the math. Don't just feel your way into it. Consider creative pricing strategies. In today's market, price cuts feel like a defeat, but strategic pricing from day one is what gets homes sold. Start sharp and generate urgency rather than starting high and chasing the market down. Unfortunately, sometimes, as a seller, you're thinking you just want to kind of test the waters a little bit. That only works in very hyper local neighborhoods, which is why it's important to talk to an agent who's, knows the market really well, knows that neighborhood, and can help you run the numbers to whether it makes sense to go ahead and sell at a loss potentially or renting it out. Okay, now if you're a buyer, this is actually a really interesting moment for buyers. Inventory is sky high. Days on the market are longer. Sellers are more motivated than they've been in years. So you have negotiating power, but you need to use it. And that doesn't mean let's just lowball everybody. It means ask for what you need, closing cost concessions, inspection repairs, interest rate buy downs. A lot of sellers would rather give you those things than see their home convert to a rental. And don't ghost on deals. If you're serious, be serious. Backing out is totally normal. Back out with integrity. Austin's real estate community is smaller than you think. But if you're on the fence about buying, here's the honest truth. I'm not going to tell you the perfect time to buy because honestly, nobody can predict that. and everybody's situation is different. What I can tell you is that Austin's fundamentals are still strong. Population growth, job diversity, lifestyle draw. The city isn't going anywhere. If you find the right home at a price you can completely afford and you plan to be here for at least 5 years, making that move is not that crazy. Just don't let the noise in either direction override what makes sense for you and your own unique situation. All right, let's wrap this up. The Austin market is going through a real adjustment right now, but we're not in a crisis, but we're also definitely not in a frenzied boom market anymore. We're in something more nuanced, and honestly, it feels a lot more normal. And in a market like this, good information and good guidance matter more than ever. If you're sitting on a property right now, wondering whether to drop the price, keep renting, or try a different strategy, reach out. Love to just have a no pressure conversation with you. Any links to contact me, phone numbers are in the description, or drop a comment below if you want to chat about anything going on. And if you know somebody who's stuck in kind of a similar situation, they've got a home they can't sell, they're thinking about renting it out, share this video with them. Seriously, it might save them a huge headache. Appreciate you watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you found this video helpful. I put out Austin-specific real estate content every single week. No fluff, no national noise, just what's happening here in Central Texas. I'm Nick, and I'll see you for the next one.